Before we start this week's Freakout section, if you've noticed underneath all these Cartoon Corner videos, there's been a link to a Zazzle page of designs that I've made. This is the first time I'm actually really advertising it in a video, and that's because I made something recently and I actually really like how it turned out, so I want to advertise it a little bit. It's Sleepy Sloth stuff. We got shirts, we got mugs for your caffeinated desperation needs, and I might put it on socks too because socks are fun. I got me some narwhal socks today to get into the star mood. But yeah, if you want to go ahead and check that out, we got a lot of fun designs up there that I've put in, and it's all through Zazzle because I don't have the time to do all the shipping details that Etsy's got. But go ahead and check it out. The link's in the description below, as it is with most of these Cartoon Corner videos. You don't have to buy anything, just take a look around, see if you like it or not. And without further ado, let's get into, we're almost near the end of Star. We're almost near it. It's almost over. How did we get this far already? Hello, cartoon fanatics. RJ here, and welcome back to another Cartoon Corner covering Star vs. the Forces of Evil. Once again, we got a whole lot to unpack. So let's start off with Sad Teen Hotline. With the last week's episodes, I was actually a little bit frustrated with them, especially with the temporary break that Star and Tom were going on. As you know, if you've watched my previous videos, I'm not a huge shipper of the show. I'm not one that really tends to get super involved with the ships, but I do feel that it's important for these ships as long as it's following the character dynamic and their natural progression. And for a lot of people, especially last week with the sudden pause on their relationship, it felt like Star was almost backpedaling after all of the growth that she had done in the past 3 seasons. So that was super frustrating for a lot of people to watch, even if you are a shipper or not. However, with the Sad Teen Hotline, we finally kind of get to work out the end of Tom's Star, so to speak. And I'm glad that we actually get more further in depth with this to see that this isn't an easy decision for either character, that they're both dealing with their emotions and they both still really like each other. But Tom, and this shows a lot of how much he's grown as a character throughout this series once again. Honestly, between the two, when it comes to their relationship, Tom's grown a lot more than Star has. Which is probably why he feels like that it's important to not be dating Star anymore. Because they have grown, but they've grown in different ways. And because of that, their lives are almost leaning towards 2 different paths. And being together is just keeping them in the same place that they were in the past, and they're unable to move on as long as they're together. Because it's like, you know, they're living through the same cycle over and over and over again. And Tom wants to be able to go off and do things and grow, and Star also wants to be able to go off and do things and grow. But they can't necessarily do that together, which is kind of the core of this episode. And I'm really glad that we get into more detail about it, even though they're stuck on Earth while it's happening. But it helps me feel a little bit better about the sudden break from last week's episodes, because last week it just felt so jarring, like everything was fine with them and then all of a sudden it wasn't, and oh, this is because the writers gotta fit in STARCO somehow or whatever. But this episode, this feels like this is what should have happened. We should have just kept out the Doop Doop episode altogether and just gone right to this one. I guess Doop Doop was to kind of show that Star had some reservations about continuing her relationship with Tom in a romantic sense, but honestly, between the two of them, Sad Teen Hotline was a much stronger episode for both of these characters. And even though they are broken up and they are kind of going different ways and we are leaning more towards STARCO now, it does feel good to see that it's ended in a way that's fitting for both characters. And at least for me, I felt more satisfied with this particular episode. Should this have happened? I don't know. I mean, Star's relationships throughout this whole series hasn't been one of the parts that has really drawn me in. It's the teenage shenanigans that kind of drive me crazy sometimes. But considering it's such an important part of Star's development, it probably was good to look into this. And it's important to see that sometimes to grow, you can't necessarily stay with the same person you're with, even though you might really like each other and get along. And it's nice to see the pain that both of them are going through when this happens too, but ultimately they decide it's for the best. And that's also when we discover that all magical portals are closed off, which leads directly into shenanigans. Okay, I should have known that we were getting close to the end of this series because these next 3 episodes are just kind of like 3 punches right in the gut in terms of plot. But basically what happens is now Star and Marco and Tom are trying to figure out how to get to Muni, because if all the portals aren't working and Star can't even contact anyone, not even Ponyhead, who's up at all hours of the night, they know that something is horribly wrong and they've got to get back to Muni. And the only person they can think of that just happened to randomly show up to Muni. Wow, my words. I am so sorry. The only person that randomly showed up into Muni with no dimensional scissors or portal magic of any of her own was Jana. So they go to Jana to, be like, Jana, you got all the secrets. Tell us how you got to Muni. And Jana kind of takes him on all these little side quest adventures, and it's revealed that Jana doesn't really remember how she got to Muni. And for once, we actually see Jana crack. She is terrified of the fact that she doesn't know how she ended up in Muni. And I kind of joked about it when she first showed up that, the writers just threw her in there like, Jana's in here now, don't worry about it. But it turned out to be a pretty important plot point. Because they discover, and eventually they figure out how to jar Jana's memory a little bit and what she's forgotten. There is a magic well underneath the taco shop on Earth that leads directly into Muni. And this confirms a lot of theories that kind of started the moment we saw Marco try the wand and get the cheek marks, that Mewmans are actually just a mutated form of humans. They started as humans, and they fell into this magic well on accident, ended up in the realm of magic, and found themselves in Muni, where then, as of course we know from the Meteora's Lesson episode, Glossaric hands one of them the wand, and they start up the kingdom of Muni as we know it. So that also brings about the idea that basically anyone, any human, can become a magical, powerful Mewman queen or king or whatever. It just depends on how much magic you've been exposed to and how well you're able to use it. Which explains why Marco was able to use the wand, because ultimately he's the same as Star in terms of DNA or scientific stuff. That they're all humans, that's the point. They're just multi-dimensional humans, and that's a really interesting thing to think about, and it's cool because we're finally getting a little bit of some mysteries from the previous seasons finally being pieced together. Muni's history has kind of been a ginormous mystery throughout the whole show. It's been a super crucial part of the whole show, and the fact that we're seeing more into it and more is being revealed, like all of Eclipsa and Globgore's background, even though there's still a little bit of sketchiness there. But hopefully we get to find out everything by the time this series ends, or else I'm going to go bonkers if there's something that they forget to mention. It'll be like, well, but what about that thing? What about that thing? It'll probably be the one thing I want to know the most about too. But that's beside the point. The point is that they discover the only way to get to Muni is to go through the magic realm. And as we've known in the past, the magic realm messes your mind pretty bad. So, what do you do when you gotta travel through a magic realm that'll make you potentially lose all coherent thought, but it's your only way to get home? Well, Star actually comes up with a pretty creative solution where they borrow Oscar's car and they lock themselves inside of the car. First, she orders the lead magical unicorn to take them to the portal that'll lead them to Muni, and then from there she locks everyone in the car in hopes that when they do all lose their minds, that hopefully, the safety locks on the car will be enough to keep them in. It is not enough to keep them in, and it leads, I don't know how to explain this. I kind of have frustration anytime they end up in the realm of magic because of the whole memory loss thing, and it always feels like a moment of no, not again, no. Especially the episode when Star went to get Moon and they both lost their marbles. That drove me crazy. But here it's kind of more like fun shenanigans. We see Star and Marco pretend to be like these parents to all the little baby unicorns. Tom's having like an existential crisis with his demonness, and Jana's just kind of being the way that Jana normally is, just not remembering how she's normally Jana, which is super funny. But we see that the dark purplish stuff, the goo, I don't even know what to call it. Is it dark magic? Is it goop magic? It's slowly seeping through the realm of magic, and the lead unicorn that Star created is having a bit of a crisis because it's consuming everything, It's even created like this evil dark unicorn that she has to combat in order to keep things in balance. And that made me think of, boy, this seems like a bigger threat than even Mina or anything else that's going on, because if the magic itself is getting tainted, what is that going to say for everyone's magic? It's kind of similar in the way that when Toffee tainted all the magic. Here I go, I'm bringing it back to Toffee again. But he's dead, right? He's not coming back? I can't think about that. If I think about that, my mind's going to explode. But, you know, there is actually an explanation for the purple magic, because it started seeping through the magic realm when Moon went there to heal herself from all the dark magic that was inside of her. Remember, she wore gloves because she had all of those dark purple marks on her arms. And she got that from using the darkest spell that Eclipsa had created, and this spell is supposed to defeat the Septarians to the point where they can't regenerate. So this darkest spell is so bad that not only does it taint the person using it, but once the person using it manages to rid it off of them, it also taints the magic well itself. That's a lot to take in. And I have no idea if that's a legitimate problem. I feel like it is, because in this whole episode, there's that kind of a little bit of conflict along with the main characters trying to find their way back to Muni, but yikes. But now back to this season's recent conflict problems. The unicorn does manage to transport Star and her friends back into different parts of Muni, although they're all separated. And slowly we piece together that the Magic High Commission has hired Mina to get rid of Eclipsa, which I knew that Romulus had this thing about Eclipsa, but I didn't know that the rest of the Magic High Commission was also still very anti-Eclipsa, to the point that they would get Mina in to destroy her. Like, I don't know if they're just super thick-headed or if they're not thinking properly somehow. Something just doesn't seem right in their stubbornness, but that might be something that we find out next week. I don't know. But now we officially have Mina's attack on Muni, and slowly all of the characters are hurrying over to Eclipsa's aid. Janna's the only one that actually makes it to the monster temple where the attack is happening. And we see that Mina's got this special Solarian sword for being a Solarian warrior that can hinder and destroy monsters' magic, because we watch her fight Globgor, and Globgor gets severely injured and he's unable to shapeshift anymore. Which means it's Queen Eclipsa to duke it out and protect her kingdom. And once again, we get some awesome battle animation here, but it ends on a cliffhanger. We don't know who wins. All we see is Eclipsa desperately trying to protect her people, and Mina just hammering it in and giving it all she's got, and all of Eclipsa's magic, even the spell that she used to defeat Meteora's previous form in the last season, which seemed like a super big deal, she does on Mina multiple times, and it does nothing to her. So now, we don't know how Mina's going to be defeated or what this is even leading up to. That's just where it ends. That's just where it ends. Everyone's in pain right now, but it's exciting pain because stuff is happening. So if you liked hearing this review, make sure to put a thumbs up and press that like button. Comment below on exactly what do you think is going down here? How is this going to get resolved? Are we going to get all of our questions answered or not? I have no more. I don't even know what to think anymore. So just put whatever thoughts you might have down below about these episodes. And I'll see you next week for... Cleaved is next week, isn't it? Cleaved is happening next week. The series finale is next week.